All right, we're now joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Pete DeBoer, the head coach of the Dallas Stars. And Pete, this will come as no surprise to you. I do a ton of research for every guest, for every podcast episode that we do. I didn't have to research too hard in preparation for this one. Here's something I did not know. And Ray, I'm curious if you knew this. Peter DeBoer, born June 13th, 1968. You know why that's significant? It's the same birthday as me. June 13, 1968. Now, I look much older at 54 than
sure.
Pete does. Look at that.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
It's a great day in history, Ray.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but it's funny in that, you do your research and like that. I did mine right before we started, and I find out that Pete likes to fish, but he likes to fish in the warm weather, not like that idiotic ice fishing. So Pete, you wouldn't sit out in an ice hut, would you?
Absolutely not. You know what? I have the same rules for fish and golf. The sun has to be shining. It has to be above 75 degrees, and the weather pretty much has to be perfect for me to participate in either of those sports.
Yeah, well, Ray, have a look at Pete's coaching resume here for a moment, right? New Jersey, not a bad state. I mean, if you get out of certain parts of New Jersey, it's beautiful.
Underrated. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you look at the other, and it's all warm weather here. So, I mean, maybe it's about the opportunity and all of those things. But now that we've just heard Pete DeBoer acknowledge he's a fair weather golfer and fisherman, maybe that speaks to his coaching resume too.
Thing you're missing on those cities too, there's some good no tax states in there too that
it's all coming together.
That's awesome.
So how have you enjoyed Dallas year one in? Aside from the hockey, we'll get to that in a minute. Just get to Texas and all.
You know what? This was always one of my favorite stops. I can't believe it, but I think this is my 16th year now in the NHL. It was always one of my favorite stops coming through here. Great city, great downtown, friendly people, great restaurant. So I didn't know what it would be like living here. And my last couple stops have been really small centers. Vegas is they're big cities, but small centers. San Jose, Vegas, and even New Jersey. I lived in a small town on the outskirts. So we're right downtown Dallas, and this is a big city. I mean, you're highway driving, it's spread out, there's sprawl. Our practice rink's probably 30 minutes away. It's probably similar to living in Toronto and living in Oakville, working downtown Toronto, going in that traffic every day. So I'm getting used to that, but I really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the people, and the rink's rocking every night. They're a lively crowd. So and things have been good.
Well, last year ends, and now all of a sudden you're not going to return. So what happens in those immediate days? Like, how do you collect yourself? How do you look at what might be out there, or is it not even that? You're just trying to survive.
Yeah. It's funny. It's the first time I've been fired, and I've been fired 4 times where, I was pissed off that I never got a chance to come back because of the circumstances. The other ones, whatever the circumstances with the team, I look back, Florida was a little bit of a mess. The guy who hired me wasn't there anymore. Jersey was basically a full rebuild because Kovalchuk and Parise left in free agency. San Jose, Pavelski, Joe Thornton gone. That was heading the rebound way, so you knew. But the Vegas one was, I thought we did a real good group job with that group as a staff. Got to 2 conference finals, and then hit, an unheralded amount of injuries that pretty much would decimate anybody. And scratched and clawed to 94 points. So I was frankly pissed off that we never got the benefit of another chance. But what hockey and life have taught me is everything happens for a reason, and I couldn't have landed in a better spot. This opportunity probably isn't there if I go back. So you know, I couldn't be happier about how it all worked out.
When you were in Vegas, you're, you know, in those injuries, you lose both of your goalies, and all of a sudden Logan Thompson's your goaltender. Did you know anything about him? I mean, he's in the All-Star game this year. It's a fabulous story. And what does that tell us maybe about the game that and the players that are in it?
Yeah, you know, I being in the organization for 2+ years, I did know Logan. I mean, I knew his story, which you had tremendous amount of respect for. I mean, Canadian university hockey after junior, you know, you're pretty much done and on to the next phase of your life. And he battled and scrapped, came through the East Coast League. But the thing I liked about him was, you know, he dominated at the lower level. And that always, for me, is the stepping stone to having success at the NHL. And he was goalie of the year in the American League, won their equivalent of the Vezina down there for Henderson the year before. So he did it right, you know, and he was ready. And I'm not surprised. And, you know, I probably should have played him more down the stretch last year. We might have got in the playoffs.
I'm looking at that picture over your shoulder, and a player I've just long admired. I was never a big player, and I just love the career Joe Pavelski has put together. Now you've had him in a couple of spots. Why is Joe so good?
Wow, where do you start? You know what, the consummate pro, great guy, leadership, but you know, on the ice, it's just his hockey IQ. You know, he's always in the right place. He always makes the right play with the puck. He always creates his offense, but never at the expense of cheating. Will block shots. Will fight if he has to. Takes face-offs. Plays, you know, on the boards and wins pinches against guys a foot taller and 50 pounds heavier. He just does. He does it all, Ray. Like he's, you know. I would assume the Bobby Clark of our era, or a guy like the Brian Trottier of our era, you know, guys like that. You win with guys like that. And, you know, he's a special human being on top of it. Took our young 19-year-old Wyatt Johnston into his home this year, and he's living with him. And I think this Wyatt Johnston is going to be a special player, but I think he's going to look back at the end of his career and go, wow, was I fortunate to learn under a guy like that. Just little things like, you know, what time do you leave for the rink? How do you prepare before a game? What time do you go to bed? You know, when you can have fun and still play in the NHL, but you know, what's the night you do it? So
yeah, let's, you know, Pete, dig a little bit deeper into Wyatt Johnston. You knew what you kind of had when the kid showed up when he's drafted by the organization, but did it become very obvious and apparent at training camp that he had put in the work, that he was ready, and that he was at least going to force your decision to be a real difficult one to keep him?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not sure we knew what we had. Like, you know, you typically, to get a player like this, you usually have to pick him in the top 3 or 4. And even then, you know, the league's littered with guys that went that high that haven't done what this kid's done. So I'm not sure, you know, until you actually get him on the ice and throw him in those situations. And then, you know, there's always the stepping stone. So, you know, he came in camp, had a good camp, didn't blow us away. And then for me and Jim, it was just sitting down. Okay, is he going to hit the wall at 10 games? Is he going to hit the wall at 20? Is the league going to catch up to him at 30? And you know, instead of stumbling, the kid's just gotten better and better every day. Like the confidence has grown. He hasn't stumbled. The really amazing part is we rewatch every game the next morning as a staff and come up with teaching clips. And you know, a coach will tell you, you know, there's some guys on every team where you could have a teaching clip every shift they're on the ice and work on something. This guy, you know, through 50 games, you know, I could count on one hand the number of times I've sat him down with teaching clips. He's always in the right spot. Wow. He's always making the right play. You know, if there is a mistake, it's usually because of size or strength, which you've got to understand. You know, that's going to come. But exceptional. Yeah, exceptional.
How did the decision come to, hey, you know, Jamie Benn just played his 1,000th game. Let's get Ben into the middle of the ice, not on the wall, and we'll play him to these two younger guys, Delandria and Wyatt, and it just looks like it's supposed to. I mean, I did a game early in the year there, Pete, and I was like, man, that just sort of fits. Like, how did you come to that?
Well, it started with the pair. I think when Jim and I talked in the summer about Wyatt Johnston stepping into the league, I think, we both felt we would like to insulate him with a guy like Jamie Benn. And Ray, having played in this league, if you're a young player coming in, people are gonna take some runs at you and take some shots at you, especially if you're a skilled guy. And what Jamie Benn allows him to do is play with confidence and know he's not gonna get run or get pushed out of the game by people. So that security blanket, so to say, for Wyatt, we felt was real important. The sell was, what's Jamie Benn gonna think? A Canadian Olympian, former Hart Trophy winner. You're going to play on the third line with a 19-year-old center who's never played a game in the NHL before. But to expand on Jamie Benn's character, I had that conversation with him, and there wasn't one sideways glance or moan. He was all in. If that was going to help us win games, then he was all in. We shaved minutes off his ice time. I think he's playing probably the lowest amount in his career right now because he's on the third line, but also because, we just felt with some of our older guys that they would be better players. We wanted to be more of a four-line team, and he's been all in on everything we've asked him to do. I can't say enough about his leadership.
Every year the Stanley Cup gets awarded. Next week everybody heads to wherever the draft is. They sit around the table, everybody passes their draft lists around, and they draft 7 players or 8 players or whatever they got. Every once in a while something hits, but you don't know till years later. In 2017, Dallas drafts Jake Ottinger and Jason Robertson. And they're 2 names and 2 really highly regarded prospects. How many times have you sat at a table, names get picked, and you go, man, I think we got something here, and it doesn't happen. And then this time, you've got core guys out of the same draft.
Yeah. Every year, right? I was coach GM in Kitchener Rangers for 15 years, and I screwed up tons of drafts. There was a lot of guys there. What I will tell you is, I believe that good people and work ethic gets rewarded, and no one's worked harder over his career than Joe McDonnell and Jim Nill. Those guys have been hockey lifers. I coached against Joe McDonnell in junior. He went to scout with the Detroit Red Wings, was heavily involved with all those drafts with Jim in Detroit, and then they brought their show here to Dallas. And the best scouts in the world don't hit every year, but if you work hard enough for long enough and are good people, you do. And I think that's the case here. I think this guy's an exceptional hockey man, and I don't think it's an accident.
So you've got the trade deadline. Go ahead,
sorry, Ray. Go ahead, Dregs. No, I was just going to ask one question about Robertson. Last year, I was told he reminded of Luc Robitaille a little bit. Not the fastest guy, but always seems to be where the puck ends up, and then he scores. Is that pretty fair in your eyes?
That's a great name. People have asked me comparables, and I never thought about that one, but that's really appropriate. I think underrated compete like Luc. You can win with them like Luc. I think some of the intangibles Luc brought to the game got overshadowed by the fact that he was a goal scorer, and I think he was much more complete player than that. And I think Jason Robertson's exactly like that too.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'll jump here, and you talked about your relationship with Jim Nill. So put us into that room with the trade deadline looming. You're clearly going to have influence. Jim is going to bounce all sorts of ideas, opportunities. It's such a hard league, as we know, to make moves, meaningful trades. in season anyway, but how involved are you? You're smiling. So
well,
you're,
because the insider's hat's going on right now.
Oh, is it ever? He's digging, man. He's
Here we go.
digging.
I've taken these calls before. I know what road we're going down here.
But you are involved, obviously, as every coach would be.
You are. You know, Jim's a great communicator. You know, I think sometimes coaches' involvement gets overrated by the people on the outside. I think my involvement with Jim, you know, a lot of times I'm not even sitting in that room on trade deadline in the various places I've been. I think your involvement is the daily conversations you have with your GM, which happen every day after practice, post game, on, you know, what the team needs of the team. You know, where are we weak? Where's our strengths? What do we have excess of? What don't we have enough of? What's the minor league team looking like? We're bringing kids up now, taking looks at some different kids to see where they fit down the stretch. So I think those daily conversations lead to the trade deadline, and you know, I'm very comfortable we're on the same page on needs. But I'll be honest with you too. I don't know. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were in Vegas going into the deadline, my first year there, and Von Karpen, the pro scout, you know, really was pushing for Alec Martinez, and I liked Alec Martinez. I coached in that division in San Jose against him, but I didn't know him really well. I hadn't seen him in a few years. A lot like Jeff Carter, that team had kind of stumbled a little bit for a little while. But he was adamant and he was bang on. You know, Marty was a key guy for me during the time I was in Vegas going to 2 conference finals. He was a warrior. He was all intangibles and character and leadership. And so, you know, that's stuff that I don't know, that we have a whole pro scouting staff that gets paid to evaluate that.
You know, you mentioned 16 years. When you said that, I was like, oof, you know, if you know how time goes and stuff. Everybody says they learn from someone or some things that have happened along the road. What's different about the way you coach now, say even 5 years ago, certainly to 15 years ago?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a quick story because I just ran into him. Bryan McCabe was my first captain my first year in Florida. So I come out of junior hockey, guns blazing. I'm ready to hit the NHL. And I ran probably the toughest training camp I've ever run in my life. And veterans were pulling up daily, groins, hip flexors, everything was falling apart. We stumbled into the season with half a team because of the injuries in the camp I ran. And I remember sitting down with Caber at the exit meetings at the end of the year, and he said, "We're not going to make that mistake again, are we?" And I said, "No, I'm not going to make that mistake again." So, you know, I think this game is about, you learn something every year from every group you have. I can tell you from a coaching perspective, nothing's been better for me from professional development than my Hockey Canada experiences. Every year I missed the playoffs, I went and tried to do the World Championships, got to work with guys like Ken Hitchcock and you know, obviously Mike Babcock was on those staffs. Mark Messier was our GM, one of those staffs. Craig McTavish, you know, Dave Tippett, Paul Maurice, on and on. So, you know, that was my opportunity at the end of tough years when we missed the playoffs to go and work with other people and the best players in the world and get better. And I got better every time I went to one of those.
Terrific stuff. All right, Pete. Well, we'll let you go. You got rest of the season to focus on. It's good that we could connect and have a few laughs and talk.
And
hockey.
just so you know, Dregs, I got my phone here. I'm putting you on block till after the trade deadline.
All right, buddy. All right, I promise.
That's a good move. It's a really good move.
See you guys.
Thanks, Peter. Hey, thanks for tuning into our YouTube channel. And while you're here, why don't you do us a solid? Hit like and subscribe.
Yeah, you'll get access to all the latest uploads. You can stay updated on the latest news and interviews from the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast.
It only takes a couple of seconds. And from what I'm told, it helps with our algorithm thingamajig. Anyway,
Yes.
we appreciate the support.